Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to another special guest episode. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by my friend, Dr. Tolu Olabintan, who is a fellow family physician and practicing in Mansfield, Texas, where she is the owner, founder, and CEO of Living Spring Family Medical Center, a primary care center where she provides excellent comprehensive family medicine to her patients. Dr. Tolu, welcome so much to the show. I'm excited to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mello, and I'm so honored to be here. Good to see you too.
we go back a little ways now, so the power of Facebook friends. But so I'm curious if you will share a little bit about your story, because as we were sort of talking about the experience of burnout, you weren't really aware of what you were feeling until you went to a talk where they were, sort of explaining the concept of burnout. And I'm curious what it was that you can identify looking back that you were feeling and sort of what shifted for you as you went to this talk.
Wow. I'll be honest with you. I've known that I was overworked and tired and fatigued, but I normalized it. Like, okay, you were glutton for punishment. You chose to be a physician, so this was a price I had to pay for it. It was like a continuum.
Just what we do.
Mm-hmm. It is like a continuum of residency. Is just now we better pay, and like is more drawn out. It spreads its tentacles to other areas of your life. So it affects, marriage and raising children and what it means to rest. Like rest, what's that? When you're on vacation, yes, but outside of that, you don't have that. And so the clinic I was working at the time had started a pilot program where they were trying to address burnout. And there was a lecture, and I'm like, yeah, here we go again. Burnout. Let's go hear this. And they had asked that we invite our spouse. And I was like, I could turn it to date night, two birds, one stone, another way to manage everything. And so I invited my husband, and he went, he raised his hand and asked questions. He's like, oh my gosh. So it's not normal. And I was like, oh my God, why would you ask that question? Like, before? He's like, so it's not normal. So you're saying that physicians shouldn't be like, this worked up, right? Because you guys talk about 40 hours, but my wife is working 90 hours between the notes and everything. She carries home, like, that's ridiculous. So you're saying that this is not normal. And so I'm sitting there like, oh, but I'm starting to see that, what they're saying. The doctor who's talking is saying he went through burnout. He left medicine entirely. And his whole focus now was trying to help people balance medicine and not live in the zone of burnout perpetually. When it then took me back to other times in my career where, and I think I shared this with you, I had lost a pregnancy while at work. So I thought that was the brave thing to do as a physician. Someone else didn't have to suffer because I was going through, like, I literally bled at work. I was delivering babies, and I was like, that's you. I was a hero.
Right.
And so
I'm such a martyr. I'm just gonna miscarry right here and, keep on keeping on.
That was foolishness. And I admit it, that was not wise on my part. And I admit that. And, I think it was what hit me, this talk took me back there. And I remember when I was in my hospital bed, when I was actually pregnant with my first son, and I was 24 weeks, my water had broken. And I got a letter saying that because I had not worked enough time with the same company, I was not entitled to any kind of pay or coverage. And so my husband said, I remember him telling me then, like, I hope this reminds you, like, when it comes down to it, people put what's first. Your hospital, your clinic didn't put you first. You put them first when you were losing a baby. And so it took me back there again, like, okay, maybe my priorities are not in order, and I really need to shift and move away from this material, like I'm a hero, versus I'm still a human being, I'm still a wife, a mother, and those roles are just as important. Actually, no offense, more important.
How dare you?
That's my
Oh
family.
man,
Like,
yeah, what a
so that was the beginning of the, okay, something needs to
something
change.
needs to change.
Something needs to change. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because if you think about any other human in these situations, right? If it was your friend and colleague, right, who was miscarrying or in the hospital, if it was your patient, right, you would have no qualms at all about saying, don't worry about work, like you need this time, take the right, like, your body's telling you to slow down, like, giving them that support. And yet here we are, feeling like, well, I can't be weak and let whatever's happening to I can't take this as a sign that I'm doing too much, because I am somebody who has to keep going, right? Like, this is what I've signed up for, right? We think that message so deeply. Like, I've signed up for a lifetime of hurt and stress and burden to do this job, because that's just what I see. That's what I feel. That's what I experience. That's what I, is kind of like the self-reinforcing message. Even though I hope no one said any of those particular things out loud. Yes, they would do things like saying, hey, we're not covering this leave. We're not gonna do that because you haven't sort of met our guidelines. Right. But they didn't say, well, it turns out you need to keep working when you're bleeding.
Right.
Didn't say quite like that. Oh man. Okay. All right. So you've had these moments, right? These, sometimes we talk about whispers from the universe, but these are like shouting events, right? From the universe saying, this will not work. What did you do with that information? And it might have had to, I know in my experience, I had to be shouted out a number of times before I really did anything. But what was that like for you?
Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm still on the journey as far as figuring that out. But one of the things that started to shift is for me to dare to ask for what I needed. And that's not something, if they shifted schedules or said I had to do this, yeah, sure. I'm grateful to have a job. This is good. And I love what I do. Don't get me wrong. I love being a physician.
Oh, that I know.
The admin stuff and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, geez. But one of the things that started was the pilot program where they would actually have two medical assistants assigned to me. And their job was to prep the patients, be in the room with me, dictate, scribe my notes, put in the orders, and check out the patient. So I'll go from room to room, seeing patients and focus on the patient and not have to worry about the notes so much, because the team, the MA in there would do that. I saw more patients and my notes were done such that I would go home and that was it. So I am like, man, this would be awesome. This is doable. Like, and going home and not having the notes. My husband was like, oh my God, see, it helped. Like, come to the meeting helped. And I said, yes, it did. I didn't even think this was possible. So that idea is also one of the things I'm striving for in my practice now, 3, 4, 5 years after, 5 years after, where I'll have a good team support. You know what's so interesting? I want to create the type of job or the work atmosphere where those kind of things don't happen, where, so it's trickled from those years ago to now in my mindset. Like, I don't want my team members now, when they're here, they work, but when you're not here, that's it. I want you to forget about work. I don't text you. I don't call you afterward. I don't want you texting me. If I see you log in, I'm gonna block you. So forcing that balance too. So it started the asking. It started the no, like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not available. That's not what our contract says.
Say no to that. Yeah.
Yes.
And so that was a pilot program in the place that you were working that did that? I'm just curious, did they continue after the pilot was over?
So they've tried to remix it from what I hear.
Mhm.
And there were some little kinks here and there with some of the providers saying, I don't like someone doing my notes. I like to
Yeah,
do it
yeah, yeah.
myself.
We
So,
have to
so,
we
so
have
that,
to be okay with letting go of some of that control and coaching
so
for performance and giving feedback. And
exactly.
these are all trade-offs, right? Because you have, taken some of these. We'll talk a little bit more about your practice in a minute, but like you have taken some of these elements and you have created your own practice and you're using that, and it's different work, right? It's not like you just said, you two are going to come into the room with me and you're going to do this and that's all you had to say, right? No, you had to
Mhm.
teach them
Teach
how
them,
to do
yes.
things,
Yes.
direct and coach, and let people go if they weren't doing, if they weren't able to sort of pick it up. You had to sit in that discomfort, right, rather than in the
Yeah.
frustrations. I have to do all these things by myself.
Yes.
Go of the control of it, right?
Yes. It wasn't easy. You've got to sit in discomfort, like you said, of training and teaching them, downloading your thought process
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So then we've alluded to it. So you were in this practice, you were part of this pilot, you started picking up ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us then how you, sort of transitioned into being in this place of, I want to open my own clinic, because that is no small feat, right? And yeah, like people want to know, like, where did that come from?
I'll be honest. I've known that this is something I should do for a while, but I was scared,
Mm.
and I haven't worked in clinics. I was like, I do not want to do much more than I'm doing right now. You mean in addition to seeing patients, I'll have to manage people. But it became more of a burden, like it's something I knew I was called to do. And so
Mm.
with that acceptance, I prayed about it. I knew that this is something God created me for. So I was like, I don't have a choice. I want to live a fulfilled life. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. I'm scared, I'll do it. But then the next thing became, who would I need to align with and what would I need to align with? Like, I got to get a team together. And that was another mindset shift, because I think as physicians, we've got to do everything ourselves, because
Right.
we're
I'll just
particular.
figure it out on my own.
Yeah, we like our dishes a certain way. We like I like my house tidy all the time. I have little kids, like all the time. So there was that, no, I got it. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't got it. I need help. And so it was asking people for help. It was asking for advice. It was hiring a consultant. It was signing up for the business school that you're aware of. It was asking and receiving the help. So I got comfortable with, like, I don't know. Let me ask. Who do I ask? Where do I ask? Who can I ask to help? When I pay to help, who can do it for me free? Like it became being open to be vulnerable, to ask for what I needed during that season. And it's still a challenge as far as, I know we're talking burnout. It was just recently this week in reading a book that I realized I need to have days where I do not even think about the work, the job.
Mm-hmm.
But to get to this point, I'll be honest with you, it's been asking for more team members, training more team members, so that way I can really step out some days of the week and not collapse under the weight of the responsibility, and being okay with not finishing my notes perfectly the day of. Okay. So I'll throw that out there too.
Yeah. That perfectionist habit, like we got to let that go of, it's not all going to be just so. I mean, because that's part of asking for help too. It's not only the vulnerability to ask and receive help, and those are two different things, right? It's also, that part of it of, like, there are going to be things here that get done that aren't done in the way that I have had in my brain that it needs to be done, right? If somebody else is scribing for me, it's not going to look exactly as if I was sitting there typing it myself. And that's okay. And I'm going to figure out what's okay and what's not okay.
Right.
But it's going to be different. And I'm going to have to let some of these things go. Now, we're not going to compromise, right? People always come to me and they're like, oh God, it's going to be lazy. It's going to be unsafe. It's going to be this. It's not going to be those things, because we aren't going to compromise on those parts.
Right.
Right? We are going to compromise on the parts that we are micromanaging and telling ourselves have to be done just so, like the dishwasher, right? Right? We're going to let go of some of those things so that we can be more effective in the parts that we're really great at.
Yes.
Right. I follow you on social media as well. And so I see, all the posts that you do about those deep conversations that you have with patients that sort of break them open and break them out of where they're stuck, mostly around kind of chronic disease stuff, right? Like, oh, I can't fix my diabetes because I love sugar. And it's like, no, you find a way, right, to crack in there and be like, guess what? That's normal. I love sugar too. Everybody loves sugar. How can we do this better for you so that it's not harming you, right? Like you've got a special sauce there. And we want you to use your genius, but we don't want to waste all of that on the notes.
Thank you. Thank you. That is it. That is it.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so you knew it was in you. Like I need to open my own place, right? And you maybe didn't always want to hear that, right? Because that's hard, right? That's a different challenge than what we've faced. And I think, we've dealt with so much challenge to get to the places that we are in medicine that we're like, God, I don't want to learn anything more. I don't want to learn business skills or managing people or any of those things. But you did, right? You did jump in and learn that thing and talk a little bit about this concept of kind of, asking for help, but also choosing to invest in yourself and your success. Because that, I think we haven't really talked a lot about on this show. And I think that's another area where women especially get a little hung up of, oh, I can't pay money for help. What did you go through? I'm sorry, this is a surprise question, but what did you go through in sort of unraveling that piece for yourself?
I'll start with this first. Anyone you're watching or admiring who has no failure stories or no one they're looking up to, you run away from that. They're not someone you should be watching because that is not real. That is not sustainable. And that's no. All right. So thankfully, before I had decided to open a practice, the mindset of paying for value opened up to me.
Yeah.
Because before I get the free stuff, the free, because,
I'll read this book. I'll listen to this. It'll be good enough.
I would study by myself. But then I had seen some of my friends, transform. People who used to be stutterers, who would be very afraid of like being in the limelight. I saw them emerge, even with the stutter, and command a room or, sell or market a product that was changing lives. So it's not just to come here and market, because some people say, oh, you're asleep. No, but market a product and that has changed their life. And people were testifying to how awesome and how grateful they were that she niched down to this. And I said, oh my goodness, who is she watching? Initially, I looked and I was like, oh, she has a coach. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that woo-woo stuff. Coach.
What's that? Yeah.
I can't believe that some of the things I'm saying right now, but I'm so thankful for who I've become. It's worth it. But you are your biggest investment. And so knowing that paying for value was important, my husband would always say things like, you don't buy stuff for yourself. You don't buy expensive stuff. Now, there's some things I'll buy. I'm not a bag person, not a shoe person per se. And he's like, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get me coach, call it a coach, instructor, a mentor, whatever. I've had mentors in different areas of my life, but this time I'm going to pay for someone to help me, to help pull out those virtues in me so that I can emerge as the leader I need to be to run the practice. And every one of us is a leader. We have that potential. And so that was the thing. And so I was so fortunate to have that series of mindset shifts before I was exposed to one of my mentors today. And it's been worth the investment. It's not cheap. It's a chunk, but oh my gosh, who I'm becoming, get you a coach, get you whatever phrase you need to get someone who will help motivate you to the next season of your life. Otherwise, you stay the way you are. You wonder, why is everything around me changing? I'm just staying the same. When you change, things around you, it's like a domino effect that you can't even stop.
Well, just think about how many of us, have gone into six-figure debt to become the professionals that we are, right? And that's fairly normal, right? And that debt looks all different ways and it means different things to each of us, right? But we didn't question the value of that, right? You have to go to medical school in order to graduate from medical school and get that degree, which allows you to, do these things down the line. We don't question that. But it's like after we're done with residency or perhaps fellowship, or, maybe we do a little, I don't know, some other kind of leadership training or, something else. I think a lot of people stop thinking that they would ever sort of invest in themselves, either personally or professionally. They're like, no, I've paid all that money to be who I am now. So I should be fine. And you can be fine, right? But if you want to keep growing, right, and keep moving yourself and trying to figure out, what is this next version of me, right? What is the version of me, for example, who, creates their own clinic, right? And figures out what they want and how they're going to provide care, or, whatever version somebody wants to be, right? The version of myself that has it figured out and has made work life easier, right? So I can be the parent and the spouse and the whatever I want to be in the rest of my life. It's really hard to do that stuff just completely on your own without any help, right? Because it's important, but not urgent, right? And with the work that we do, taking care of patients, right? Or, raising a family or any of those other things, right? Those things almost always come first, right? Before our goal of whatever we want to build for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting, Dr. Mello. I remember when we did our Facebook Live, and one of the things you said to me that was a mindset shift. Our actions are a product of our thoughts ultimately. And when you can get someone who's able to coach you or mentor you or change your thought process, you start oh my gosh, you said something. You said, what makes you think you're entitled to a stress-free life? You remember, but that was what 2 years ago. I never forgot that. And I'm like, oh, you know what, and we were talking about kids, be like in the house to be a certain way, and then like their kids, if they didn't do this, like that, then it'd be abnormal. So you need to adjust your expectations, and that was so. I'm used to teach you my kids, like, okay, that's part of growing. You want to grow up, right? It's part of growing up. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but that's what comes with life challenges, and that's okay. It's now, how do we power through them, not throw a fit at their challenges. They exist,
right?
As simple as that was, it spurred a shift in how I see challenges. Not that they're not hard, but it's okay. I didn't offend anyone for this to happen. It's part of being an adult, and so it's a question of who do I reach out to. And so that's the power of coaching. That's the power of mentorship. That's the power of creating a painful community that actually helps you. And it sounds very simple. And that's the irony and the challenge. If it was harder, like surgery, you would be like, let's do it. It sounds like it costs me something outside of money, so it must work. But it's the simple things and having someone to help hone it down and personalize it to you. That makes a difference.
It's that resisting, that it shouldn't be this way, right? We shouldn't have challenges, or things should be fair, right? That's the thing with kids, right? Well, that's not fair. Well, yeah, right? Sometimes it's not going to be fair, right? And mommy can try and railroad it and make it fair, but that doesn't work in real life, right? Such a hard parenting spot, right? Of trying to figure out that balance of like, we can make some things more fair, but sometimes we're also just going to have to learn, what do we do when it's not fair?
True.
How do we respond? And so tell me a little bit about, the place that you're in now, and you said very freely, and I share very freely as well, like, we are not done on our journeys of figuring out burnout or any other challenges, right, that are in our life. We haven't found a magic solution, right? But we are consciously working on it all the time, right? Trying to figure out how to navigate these parts of our life. I'm wondering, what have been some of the biggest lessons for you in terms of running your own clinic and sort of learning how to manage yourself and, any elements of burnout that, sort of come back to you from what you've experienced before? Because we can overwork ourselves anywhere. We can overwork and overperfect, whether we're the boss of us or whether we work for someone else. So I'm curious to know lessons, that you've learned in having your practice now for 2 years, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
I would say this, and I was jotting down as you were asking the question. Number one, I would say is it takes a team. I have understood now that to increase in capacity or to make the most impact, I need a team. End of story. There's no maybe sometime. No, it's I need a team on the home front, on the work front, and so paying for those things, yes, would hurt, will bite, but they're necessary.
Yeah.
So team. I'm always thinking team, and I'm still trying to grow the team.
Yeah.
Number two is delegate, and delegate the outcome, not the method. All right, this one is like same thing with scribing. Like, no, it has to be like a comma and this, this and this. I'm like, okay, what's the outcome? Can you tell the story from the S to the O to the A to the P? Did you document it well? If someone were to read it, because the patients get a summary of the plan, right? So it's like, will the patient understand it? And also, if I send it to a consultant, will they be able to understand my flow, my thought or reasoning?
Yeah. So
that's the outcome I'm looking for. Your how, if you want to bullet point it, if you want to 1, 2, 3 it, if you want to template it, like as long as it's communicated. So that's something I'm still working on, because delegation is very, very important. So don't get too micromanaging with the how, as long as it's legal. It's the outcome. Then number 3, and this one I just recently started, like I shared with you earlier, pre-recording, off work days are very, very, very important. You have to and that's also tied to rest. If people would be nicer, would be less cranky, less anxious, less depressed, more focused if they rested more. And so now I have prioritized my sleep such that TV is not really it for me anymore. There's some events I have to say no to. There are some conversations I can't have after a certain time, so my phone goes on do not disturb. So it's those, because I have prioritized rest. There's some things that have naturally kind of fallen off my plate. You've got to prioritize rest. When you're rested, like I can tell the difference when I sleep and when I don't. And as I quote this Dr. Una, progress over perfection. I would love to have everything perfect, but it doesn't exist, and it can cage you and keep you enslaved in a world that does not even exist.
Right.
And so progress.
Good enough version now.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So all these things help with relieving burnout. And they do. At least for me.
Yeah, and I want to go back to your third point there about the sleep and the rest. I'm reading this book called The Lazy Genius Way, and she has a podcast as well called The Lazy Genius. And one of the things she says is, when you've decided that something's important to you, right? It's something you really want to prioritize, like you have to make it matter, right? So you've made sleep and rest matter in your life. And naturally, that's let some other things kind of fall by the wayside, right? That don't fit. You didn't maybe actively decide, like, I'm going to let those things go. But in prioritizing sleep and rest and moving that to the forefront, right, those things have naturally sort of fallen away, right? Because sometimes we do need to decide, like, I'm not doing that anymore. One of our classmates, who will remain nameless, decided, for example, she's not doing laundry anymore. And she told me the story that she just stopped doing laundry. And her husband wasn't going to be working for the summer, and just was like, what's up with the laundry? There's all these dirty clothes. And she said, oh, I've just decided I'm not doing laundry anymore. So either you're going to do it or we're going to hire somebody to clean the laundry. Otherwise, there's not going to be any clean clothes. So that is something that can happen, right? We make a decision. I'm not doing that anymore. But sometimes we move something that's important to us up the priority list. And naturally, other things go down. It's kind of the opposite of when we're saying yes to something, we're saying no to something else.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's often rest, right? It's often adding one more thing to our busy plates. Yeah. Good. I'm so glad you shared that. Somebody who's out there, is listening to your story, and they've also had this idea that they really should do their own thing, that they really have that inside them. They're called to do it, right? They're called to open their own practice, or, whatever it might be, if it's not a medical clinic, and they have been not listening to that voice, right? That calling, and maybe feeling really burned out, and maybe feeling like, oh, I could never do that. What do you want that person who's listening to us right now? What do you want them to know?
I feel you. I've been there. But I want to encourage you that it is possible to see your dream come to fruition. It's going to take a team, like I said before. It's going to take a stretching on your part. But in the end, you can live the life that you want. And that's a time where you control a life. You control your time, your resources, and the people you even hang around with. My biggest tip would be see people doing the things you envision doing.
Or sound cut out there. Can you say that again?
So see the people kind of look at the people who you see doing the things that you are considering doing and ask them. That's what I did.
Yeah. Talk to them.
Now 2 years after is easier to talk about. Yeah, we have a team, this, blah, blah, blah. But there were days I fell on the floor crying, like, what the heck was I thinking? But then I got in the community. I sat in a safe room, and I was vulnerable, and I learned the things. I was given tips through every season of the journey.
Yeah.
Okay. So get you a community, get a coach, get someone who can mentor you through the process.
Yeah.
It is possible.
Yeah.
It is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And that community piece of really being with people who also are trying to do something big, right? Who are also, trying to make a change of some kind. Right. Or have made a change, right? There's different people in, different sort of phases, because, as you well know, right, being in those spaces with other people who are envisioning and dreaming big makes a huge difference compared to sort of sitting in the soup that we know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. So for anyone who's out there and they want to know more about you and your practice, I would also highly recommend people follow you on social media if they have any inkling at all that they might want to grow their social media presence in whatever capacity, in terms of, clinic, in terms of their medical work, in terms of their coaching work, because you are just rocking it on social media. Yeah. Where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram at Dr_Olabintan. That's Olabintan. And on YouTube, you can Google Living Spring Medicals. I can't remember the handle name right now.
I'll put that in the show notes. So that, yes, she also has an excellent YouTube channel, and you bring on different physicians, mostly, I think.
Yes.
Talking about a range of medical topics, great patient information, as well as information for their physicians, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you,
everyone. So please go follow her. I think she's a great resource also to send patients to have them have access to high quality medical information and conversations between physicians that really help to advance health. It's not a lecture, right? It's not a lecture about, well, this is your diabetes. It's two physicians sitting talking about how they take care of patients and what they want people to know about their health and everything. I think it's just really powerful work. And it's just another great example of what I see primarily in women physicians choosing to do things differently, right? Choosing to say, I'm not content with the way things have been done. Mm-hmm. This is the way that I want to take care of patients. Just a true inspiration. So thank you for that part of the work that you're doing. Even though you and I are many states apart, right? There is a tremendous power in what you are doing to advance healthcare for anyone to follow you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Dr. Mello. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we will wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to have information for people to find you in the show notes. Thank you for taking the time today. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I can't wait to see you in a couple months in person, but we won't go on about that. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and please go follow Dr. Olabintan. You won't regret it. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.